Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Members of Patriot Front, wearing their matching uniforms and hiding their identities, were spotted marching through downtown Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday afternoon. Nothing about the group seems to make sense, and since the media doesn't really go out of its way to cry endlessly about them, many on the right take that as a sign that this is a complete Fed PSYOP meant to keep alive the left's favorite boogeyman, white supremacy. The media and the left do casually refer to Patriot Front, but to argue that white nationalism is on the rise. But then at the same time, we've seen what the media can do when it really works itself up into a frenzy. They don't seem to do that over this group. Nick Sandman, the Covington High School kid, got far more hate for merely smirking at a crazy guy banging a drum in his face than those masked characters do. But does that mean that they're a Fed PSYOP? Our next guest argues, no, not strictly such, but also kind of, not in the way many would think. It's pretty crazy. There's certainly Fed infiltration in the group, but there are other infiltrators as well, and even some true believers thrown into the confusing mix. Joining us now to help sort it all out is Kyle Scheidler, the Director of Homeland Security and Counterterrorism for the Center for Security Policy. He's even written about this before for The American Mind, and his thoughts then are still relevant to us today. Kyle, thanks for being back tonight.
Thanks for having me, Kara. It's always a pleasure.
Great. So the big question here is, what do we know about Patriot Front? You know, everyone on the right, we always say it's a complete Fed PSYOP, but is that true, or is the truth a little murkier than that?
Well, it's both clear and murky, Kara, because while many folks on the right seem to insist that these are a bunch of FBI agents wearing masks and marching around while they're drawing overtime, the reality is that's not really the way FBI infiltration works. The reality is we know a lot about who these characters are. We know who founded the group. We know when they founded the group. We know why they founded the group, which was because the previous organization they were part of collapsed in a disastrous fireball after the protest in Charlottesville. So we know a lot about these guys. And the reason we know a lot about these guys is because they have been infiltrated since the very moment they began by Antifa and a wide variety of other far-left activists. And in fact, they've published widely about the identity of these individuals. They've published their entire Discord chat logs going back for many years. I mean, over 100 gigabytes of data from these guys is available online if you choose to page through it, and I can assure you it's pretty boring reading. But the reality is, these guys are what they look like, which is a bunch of white supremacists pretending to be conservatives, trying to get everyone in an uproar. And the media, of course, allows them to get away with that because it's beneficial for all the reasons you stated, as they try to make this case that white supremacy is a major issue on the right. But too many on the right, I think, fall into it, which is by building it up, making it more than what it is, which is a bunch of clowns dressing like goofs marching around.
No, and it's like you said, it's so bizarre. It's like yes, they're kind of real a little bit, but then there's infiltration as well. So there are, like you said, the dorks who really, you know, that a lot of people say a lot of horrible and inflammatory stuff, right? So you get those kind of, you know, losers, right? And they go out there and they try and do their marches, and you know, many of them actually have been arrested. And like you said, you can find out, you know, many of them have been doxxed online, so you can see that there are real people. But then the other interesting part that you bring up is the Antifa infiltration. And then, as you talk about in your article, there's actually a history of that, with Antifa trying to sniff out who they think might be, you know, on the other side of things. And so then they try and infiltrate and try and get the scoop and then expose and dox. I was wondering if you could talk about that dynamic, because we hear about the Fed infiltration. I think we understand that part now. But what about the Antifa side of things? It's, you know, so it's not just limited to Patriot Front, right?
No, it's not. Antifa and similar groups have very aggressive, very successful intelligence gathering capabilities. They are constantly watching those they view as on the right, or as they view as white supremacists, seeking to identify them, seeking to dox them, and they do that quite successfully. And now you can't always trust that the information that they put out is accurate, because they certainly lump people into that white supremacist box who don't belong there.